What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Nashville Scene Podcast. I'm your host, Jerome Moore, and I have, as always, my amazing co-host, editor-in-chief of the Nashville Scene, DP. What's going on?
How's it going?
It's going
hey,
good.
Jerome, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to our contributor, Brittney McKenna, who this is your second appearance on the pod.
It is,
Talking about something very different this time.
Yes.
The first time you were on, you were talking a little bit about your cover story on Casey Musgraves, her new record. Great cover story. You're back today to talk about the third and final installment in a series that you've done for us over the past year on Nashville's unhoused community, and specifically looking at unhoused folks in Madison and outreach and Metro. And so, yes, thank you for coming back to join us once again.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me back. I guess I did all right last time.
Two times.
Great, yeah.
I didn't mess it up too bad.
You got some range. You went from music, now we talking about our homeless
Just
neighbors.
gotta keep you on your toes.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to dive in by talking about, let's just start off with The Beat, which is a nonprofit outreach group, and Darren Bradbury. Can you just tell us a little bit about them and your experience with them?
Yeah, so Darren, I originally met him several years ago, like through my music journalism work, and it was probably like early March last year. He gave me a call and told me that he had been doing some outreach work in his Madison neighborhood, and I think through that work he realized just how big the scope of the homelessness problem is in Nashville in general, but like he was really focused on the Madison area, and he was looking to shine a light on that and asked if I would be open to pitching a story on it. So I got in touch with Patrick, who very graciously was like, you've never written about this before, but we're gonna let you do it anyway. So I got to go out with Darren quite a bit, meet some of the folks he was helping, meet some of the other folks who were doing outreach with him. And since then, over in the last year, the Beat has grown into, a functional organization that's out there regularly helping people. They've got their 501c3s, they're, certified nonprofit. It's really cool on the ground kind of agile work that they're able to do and it's not the kind of work we always see. So it just felt like a really worthwhile story to me.
And Darren, at least I first came to know of him as a musician. He's a solo musician. And, tell us how, so this 3-part series, we ran the first part in April of last year, I believe, caught up again 6 months later, and then now 6 months after that. What has changed with The Beat and maybe more broadly the Madison, this community that you were looking at over the course of that year?
Yeah, I think, over the last year, he has kind of gotten to hone his methods. There's a lot of trial and error when it comes to trying to help people, trying to find, housing for people, or trying to help somebody get a job, help somebody become document ready, like that kind of thing. So he's brought a lot of really great people on board to help out, some of whom are kind of more like in an advisory capacity. He's done a lot with Reverend Jay Voorhees at City Road Chapel in Madison. And if you don't know Jay, he's just a fantastic person and such a great pillar, in the community of people trying to help end homelessness here in town. So I think, I don't know if a lot has changed in terms of like their philosophy and like their approach to what they're doing, but the awareness has spread. They've been able to raise funds, so they've been able to, host benefits. They have been able to, like when the snowstorm hit in January, they were able to really get out there and just meet some immediate needs for people. So I think, this first year they found their footing and found kind of how best to operate.
Right. And in the, I want to say January, that's a really severe snowstorm. Just sort of meeting the immediate needs of getting propane out to people so they could, people who are in encampments or wherever they may be, could get heat. And that was something that, and you cover this in your story, what Nashville does for unhoused folks, but so often there's an immediate need, and it's just as simple as like, this person needs this help today. Right. Yes. And policy change is great, and obviously we know that affordable housing is like an issue that long term can help with, getting people into housing, obviously. But today, here and now, folks need heat or they need food. And that's what Darren is very good at. I mean, he was out there in the streets overnight.
Yes.
You know, delivering to people who needed it, right?
Yeah, he and some of the folks who he's invited a number of people to live in his home with him, like people who were living in encampments. And
remind us what they call it.
It's called Hobo House, is they affectionately termed it Hobo House.
Kind of tongue in cheek, yeah.
Yeah, it's great, and they're like a big family. So once he said, like, we've got to get out and help these people, everybody else who was there with them, they were ready to go because they had been helped by the beat, and they were ready to go do the same for other people, particularly during a potentially deadly weather event.
And that's what makes like organizations or initiatives like to be great, because it's that instant access, and there's no like like hard entry to getting support. And I think a lot of times with like homeless neighbors, is like we know what they need, but it's like they got to fill out an application. Yeah. It's like the barriers. Do they need to have access to some type of technology to be able to apply, or a driver's license and these things? And like, how do you do it with dignity at the same time? And so it seems like people like at the beat, it just alleviates all those. Like, hey, what you need? Hand warmers? Boom. There you go. You need some food? Right. Boom. You need some heat? Boom. There you go. And so like, I think it's always good for community to think about those things, because it's easy to get caught up in the policy and the long-term fix of like building homes, right? Like, yeah, we love more homes, but like people need like something like right now at this moment, this second.
Yeah, people thinking of homelessness as an abstract policy issue instead of like, no, these people are fellow Nashvillians. A lot of them have lived here as long or longer than you.
Right.
They're in need. We can help them right now, right?
Right, exactly.
I wanted to bring up The Contributor.
Yeah.
The Contributor is a great local street paper that, well, why don't I let you explain
Shout out
what
to
they
them.
do. Shout out to them.
I was a volunteer. I worked for The Contributor.
Well.
I was a board member. That's family.
They're fellow media members who we have no rivalry with. We love The Contributor. So tell us a little bit about like their mission and what they do.
Yeah, so I also am a huge Contributor fan.
Yeah.
I think, did they start up in 2007?
Yep, 2007.
Yeah, so that was the year I moved here from Chattanooga. And, I remember those kind of first few months they were in operation, and have just been a huge fan ever since. But, they kind of offer this wonderful two-pronged benefit, to people who are unhoused. There's the opportunity to sell papers. So, you can make a living wage that you can depend on.
Right.
Each issue comes out, you know how many issues you're going to have, how many you're going to be able to sell. But then also the paper itself, like, it gives people who have gone through these experiences or who are currently experiencing homelessness just a platform to share their stories,
Right.
and not even necessarily about being homeless. Some people write poetry, or they draw, they send art, and
Hoboscopes.
Hoboscopes. Yeah. And so it's I just think it's one of the most wonderful organizations in Nashville. Truly,
buy the paper, take the paper.
Yes, buy the paper, take the paper.
Yellow badges.
Get to know your vendor.
Yeah,
become
we just
buddies
giving the
with
Contributor
them.
just a whole
I love
promo.
it, man. I love it. Now, and I think it gives you an opportunity sometimes to talk to the vendors, to talk to folks in that community. I've been guilty of it in my life. I think a lot of people have who live in cities or have ever lived in a city. You sit there at the light, there's somebody who's unhoused, and you kind of keep your eye on the wheel. But, if there's a Contributor vendor, these aren't expensive. You can ask them how their day's going. You can get to know your local vendor.
They're human beings, Patrick?
Oh, you almost think that, wouldn't
like, they're humans? Like, they're people?
I know. So often I think that people get in, especially, and this is, I won't get into... car culture and all that too, but people kind of get in their zone with, they're in traffic or whatever, and don't think about this person having an entire day out there. Yeah. And, having
rain,
their own...
sleet, snow.
Yep, exactly.
Umbrella, chair.
And one of the sources in your story, I believe, is a Contributor vendor, Jen. And she made a really excellent point that you put in your story about, because you covered, especially I believe in the first part of your 3-part series, how addiction and the opioid crisis intersects with homelessness, but that's not the whole story, right?
Right. Yeah. So I had a great conversation with Jen, who we only have spoken on the phone, and then we've kind of been texting since then. But she just seems like a really wonderful person. But she, was sharing her experiences with me, and she graciously was honest in saying, I've read the work you've done. The first story, I kind of felt perpetuated the stereotype that people who are homeless are also drug addicts.
Right.
And, she wasn't demonizing people who are struggling with addiction because, that is a major issue that's only continuing to get worse. But she kind of explained how oftentimes a lot of resources tend to go to whoever is the most visible. So, if you see people who are experiencing, struggling with addiction, maybe the resources are more likely to go there versus somebody like Jen. She's 73. She's not going to be as likely to be out on a street corner, going for walks, or, if the weather's hot, she's got to find somewhere indoors just for her own physical health. So, I thought what she had to say was really important in terms of who, being reminded that this affects everybody.
Right.
There is no one demographic that makes up this group. It's all ages, it's all races,
Right.
it's all backgrounds, it's everybody.
And I would challenge people who are watching and listening. You can go volunteer at the Contributor. Like, you can go right downtown. You can go in that office, and you could literally be a part of the selling the paper process. And then you can maybe even build a relationship or just ask simple questions like, hey, like, what made you start selling the paper? And they will be as honest and blunt and as real as you as possible. I started volunteering with them in 2011, 2012.
Oh, wow.
That's how
Been a
long,
while.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I've seen it grow, and now the Contributor does things like get their vendors into housing now, right? And so it was able to evolve and really be like, okay, making money is great, but how can we get them into permanent housing and also be able to sell the paper? But like, some people see them as glorified panhandlers. Right, like you believe like the Contributor gets like hate mail, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right, but that's because I don't think people understand a lot of like what you've written about in the stories, and it's like, hey, like this homelessness thing is not a monolith. Everybody doesn't fit into this box. Like, you may have a friend that's technically homeless. If they're couch surfing and they don't have a permanent place, like, or they're homeless, it just looks different, and it goes into the support. Like, we might think that person doesn't need the same amount of support as a person that is a Contributor vendor, or they're just standing on a corner with a sign. And so, like, I just employ anybody to just, if you can go volunteer, and just talk to them, because they are human beings. They are still our neighbors.
Yeah, at the end of the piece, I quoted this Wes, he lives in Hobo House, and he does a lot of work with the Beat, and something he was talking about was just how, maybe you do pull up to a red light and you don't have cash, or maybe you do have $5 that you're going to use it to buy lunch or whatever. You can also just roll down your window and say, hey, like, how's your day going? Or just wave, smile.
That's
like,
what I do.
He was saying how when he was, struggling with homelessness himself, sometimes just somebody doing something as simple as smiling or just literally acknowledging his existence could turn the day around.
Just saying hi.
Yeah.
Making eye contact. Hey,
Yeah.
how you doing, man? How you doing? How your day going? I ain't got nothing on me today, but, I hope you have a good day.
Yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or
Simple.
yeah. It doesn't have to be hard.
You don't have to
No.
make it awkward.
No, it's better if you don't.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is obviously, we reached out to somebody with the Office of Homeless Services in the story, and I believe it was one of your sources, maybe it was Jen or maybe it was Wes, but somebody pointed out, that office is doing a lot. It's not that Nashville is ignoring this problem. It's a simple fact of there's just so much. And there's different needs for like you said, they're not a monolith. People of all ages, people of all backgrounds. But what do we know Metro is doing with on the ground for homeless services?
Yeah, so that was, a kind of recurring theme across all three of these stories, just from talking to people about, changes that they would like to see, is more outreach, just having more boots on the ground out there. And, I know Metro, they only have the resources that they have, so there's only so much that you can do with those resources. They did mention the importance of, like you said, you can get out and volunteer with the Contributor. There's also all kinds of other organizations in town you can volunteer with, like the Beat or, Open Table. Just even getting trained as a volunteer, knowing how to go out, knowing how to talk to people, knowing the questions to ask them. Yeah. It's not going to be the same as having more dedicated people working for Metro,
Mm-hmm.
but it is still it's more people out there, and I think the more people who are involved in any capacity, the better.
But going to Metro, like, that's what's so important about Metro and community relationships, right? Because there are organizations that may have empty spaces, gymnasiums, and not to say you have to do it all the time, but when it's cold weather or if it's too hot, like, maybe think about how you can, like, bring some of our homeless neighbors in that don't have housing or just in the house in general to, like, get out of that. And so I'm all the way big on, like, what can we all do to participate in combating, like, leaning on our Metro system is great, but also, like, as a community member, like, what can I do from my communal point? And it's like, you ain't gotta move them into your spare bedroom unless you want to.
Yeah.
That's an option if you gotta. But
That's what Darren did.
But right, people do it, but it's
puts
like
his money where his mouth
yeah,
is.
He
but
does,
it's like,
yeah.
but like. Well, like, a lot of times we see a lot of people sit on the sidelines, and critiquing about what should be done, right? Which is easy to do. It takes no talent to do that, like,
Right.
none, right? We see it all day on, like, X, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, well, what can you be doing to be in the game, like, be a part of that? And so, like, that'd be my thing. And I think volunteering is a great, easy entry point just to like figure out, like, what's your role and what your lane and how deep you want to go in it, or you can start an organization and move people in it.
Yeah.
Well, here's something people can do as we're coming to a close here with this segment. I believe there's a fundraiser for the Beat coming up next week, right?
Yeah, May 10th, up in Madison at Amqui Station, which if you've never been, is a really cool historic train station up in Madison. The Beat's putting it on. They're going to have food and drinks. There's going to be music. Darren's going to perform, and he is also just a fantastic songwriter.
Yeah.
So, and go check him out. Becca Moncari will be there. David Dendero. Representative Afton Bain is going to speak, and Reverend Jay Voorhees, who we spoke about earlier, is also going to speak. There's a $10 suggested donation at the door.
Donate.
You can always donate more.
Donate. We all got $10. Donate.
Yeah,
That's your
yeah.
entry point. That's your action.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you've got $10.
Yeah.
Opportunity to meet some of these people in this community and put faces with names and.
Yeah, and one of a Hobo House resident, Claire Annette Possum, who is a lovely person, she's going to have her art on display, and it's going to be for sale, and all of the money for that sale will go directly to Claire, who is, she's living in Hobo House right now, but, working on finding housing of her own, and so every art sale will help with that, and then you also get to take some art home, too.
Cool.
And keep in mind, we are in a state that has criminalized, in a way, being homeless. So keep that in mind. That
Here's a whole other episode right there.
We have to continue talking about this, right?
Yeah.
And be able to
And maybe
the problem.
Representative Bain will speak to that. She's a member of Nashville's delegation, a Democrat, first-term Democrat, and she's very engaged with these sorts of policies and in this community. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
You just never know. We can easily be homeless. You just never know what can happen.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you could be
just never know.
one stroke of bad luck away,
Yeah,
and it can happen to anybody.
One flat tire.
Yeah.
One
injury.
One bill. Yeah, one injury. Yeah, for
and
sure.
I broke my leg a couple years ago, and I think we finally stopped paying bills on it a year ago. So
Wow.
it
Oh my
just
God, yeah.
You got a new leg, right?
there's a lot of metal in there, so kind of, yeah.
Well, Britt, the Bionic Woman,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us
Thank
this
you.
week. We
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming back
Yeah,
and
thank
talking
you
about
guys for having
I've
me.
loved having the story, the series. So thank you for doing it for us.
Well, thanks for letting me do it. Yeah,
Cool.
appreciate it.
No, for sure. Continue the great work. We need it.
Well, likewise.
Y'all make sure y'all go read it, right?
Yeah, read it.
Yeah,
read it. Read it.
Please donate, volunteer.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Britt.
Yeah, thank
you.
you guys.
Okay, for the second segment of our podcast this week, we are going to talk to one of my favorite coworkers, longtime coworker, our arts editor, Laura Hudson Hunter. Hello, Laura.
Thank you
Laura.
for that.
Yeah.
First time on.
Yeah, you guys are finally letting me on the pod.
We had a no Laura's rule, but no, it's excellent. We wanted to just bring you in and have you talk a little bit about the visual arts scene in Nashville and what you're looking at right now, what's going on right now.
Yeah, there's actually a lot happening. There's and what's cool about Nashville is that there's a lot of like really good homegrown talent that comes out from here and can sometimes move elsewhere. There's a lot of art fairs happening in New York City this weekend, and we've got some galleries that are showing up there in the Future Fair. Red Arrow always puts on good shows, and Karen Siepker is their artist that they're bringing up there. Then there are other artists who are in Nashville artists who are in the fairs this weekend. Vadis Turner and Marla Sivan are both showing in like some capacity in the Future Fair, and that's always kind of exciting.
Yeah.
I always like to see like where Nashville goes outside of just the confines of the city.
Yeah.
Because art is like global these days.
How would you define like Nashville's art scene and art district?
Gosh, there's so much. I mean,
Like-
it's like, yeah, it's too. There's like different. I always think of it as different categories. There's the
Okay.
studio community, the artists who are making work here. There's also the universities and like the schools.
Yeah.
A lot of people can sometimes spend their whole professional art careers just within other like artists that are show at Vanderbilt, for example, or like a superstar like Maria Magdalena Campos Pons is at Vanderbilt now, and she shows everywhere. She has, I think, her show right now is at the Tate in London. So it's a broad.
So we have a
thing.
top tier like art scene here.
It's some top tier artists, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And people come through. I mean, Nashville is, pretty transient, and with recording artists and everything, people will come through and
Yeah.
do put a little bit of work in here and go elsewhere. And sometimes people who are from here will do great things in major city centers. So
Yeah.
it's all over the place. But this weekend, the big thing that's happening is locally at least is the art crawl, which is like a long-standing tradition that
Love the
Nashville
art crawl.
has.
Yeah.
And that's and that's spread out. It used to only be around the arcade and downtown.
Fifth Avenue of the Arts is what they.
Is it
Right.
still going to happen now that the arcade is like? Was it going to be in the arcade still?
I mean,
Because
it's like remains to be seen if there's
it's
going to be
under
a big art scene in the
Yeah.
arcade and under the new sort of.
yeah, I'm mad that Manny's Pizza is gone, but that's a whole
Me
nother
too. I love
story
Manny's.
about.
Yeah.
I love Manny's.
Well, what's going on at the crawl? And if folks don't catch the crawl this weekend, is some of it going on for the next few weeks that they can see later?
Yeah, so there's always good stuff happening at Tinney Contemporary, which is downtown. It's
Yeah.
across from where the arcade used
Shout
to
out
be.
to Susan.
Yeah, we love Susan.
Yeah.
And in Wedgwood, Houston, Emily Leonard was a Nashville-based artist for years, and she's since moved on to live in another city in the Southwest somewhere. I can't remember exactly where. But she has a big show at David Luss Gallery that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And she's doing a walkthrough on Saturday, 6 p.m. There is the Free Nashville Poetry Library. I always get the order of those words wrong. Free Nashville Poetry Library has a show and sell this weekend, which is always like a lot of fun, always gets a lot of people around. That's at the Packing Plant,
Right.
also in Wedgwood, Houston. And then Grace Hall has a show that is at Red 225 or Red 225.
Okay.
That I haven't seen yet, but I've heard so much great things about her. Like, she had a show at Random Sample recently, and it got a lot of accolades. And then this is supposedly completely different work, different style of stuff. But everyone's kind of been buzzing about her a little bit.
And Joe Nolan is a longtime contributor of ours, and he writes every month the Crawl Space.
That's right.
And he really sang Grace's praises a lot in this one. And she's also frontwoman of local band Pressure Heaven, I believe. So
That's right.
wow.
So multidisciplinarian artist.
Yeah.
Love to
Yeah.
see those. Yeah. So is there anything else you're kind of keeping on the radar in the long term?
Well, speaking of Random Sample, Tara Duggar is another artist, a young artist who has a show over there. That's in the West Side.
Yeah.
It's over like kind of tucked behind where Betty's
Okay.
was and Rhino Books, my
Yeah.
fave. And it's a little tiny space that they do some really interesting sort of. It feels kind of DIY just because it's very like young and it has like a little bit of a punk radical element to it, and that show is really, really cool.
That sounds fun.
Yeah,
Cool. And Tara, you've you said she's relatively young.
she's pretty young, and we ran a review of this show in a couple weeks ago's scene. A couple weeks ago's scene. That works. Whatever.
The issue of a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And Kat Acree wrote about it, actually,
Oh, yes.
and she really, really enjoyed it and thought that...
Kat's a great art critic. I really been enjoyed reading her stuff again for us lately.
Me too. Yeah. I don't know. That's like plenty to me.
I love an art crawl, you know.
Yeah, the crawl's great.
The crawl's
And Joe's been doing the crawl spaces for us for
as long as I've been.
More than a decade.
Yeah.
Laura and I have both been here a decade plus, and he's been at it, that long, and he's great. Joe's the best. Good art and film critic, good music critic too. So.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, the art crawl is sort of the monthly thing in Nashville for the art community. They sort of come around and rally, and it can be really, really fun.
Yeah. The weather's nice, and
sometimes you get some free wine.
Yeah, some free food. Yeah. Sometimes, makes the night even better.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, Laura. As always, it's a pleasure to hear from you.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for having
joining
me
us.
on.
Yeah,
First time,
but not the last time.
Not the last time.
Yeah.
Please let me back.
Fist bumping.
Give me one of these.
Okay.
Give me one too.
Oh yeah.
Make sure y'all subscribe, like
and
share,
subscribe
all
to
of
the
that
podcast.
stuff, and do the art crawl.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.